Welcome back to Truck and Talk. I'm Stephanie Valle, and today we're diving into one of the biggest conversations in trucking, driver recruiting. Finding great drivers has never been more competitive, and behind every truck on the road is a team working to connect to the right people with the right opportunities. Joining us today is Robert Pierson, the Vice President of Driver Recruiting at Mesilla Valley Transportation. With years of experience in recruiting and a front row seat to the ever-changing driver market, Robert understands what today's drivers are looking for, how the industry continues to evolve, and what it takes to build a team that's here for the long haul. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Excited to be here as always.
And now you're a friend of the pod, with this being your second
Third
appearance. Third appearance.
yeah.
Yes, that's
I
right.
was, I think, number 2, number 9, and then what number are we at now?
I don't know, but it's always good to see you.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad to be here.
Well, before we dive into our conversation, it's time for Fuel for Thought, where we take a step back and look at the bigger picture affecting the industry. So first, the ATA estimates the trucking industry is short about 82,000 drivers this year. So does that number feel real from where you sit, or is the shortage really more of a turnover problem?
Yeah, we don't have a driver shortage. That's. I understand that there's advantages to saying that we do as an industry. It's good PR, and I know the ATA pushes that, and they have for the past 20 years that I've been in the industry. We don't have a driver shortage. We have a horrible turnover in the industry, so that makes it feel that way. Every time a driver quits a job and starts a new one, that's 2 weeks that they are not working, and that's capacity that's outside the industry. So when you have large OTR companies with 130, 180, 200% turnover, that's going to lead to a bit of a shortage. The other part, and we've talked about it in the past, is hiring the right driver in the right location for the right job. So there's a lot of drivers in this industry that I truly believe are not in the right opportunity for them. Mm-hmm. That impacts that. But we definitely don't have a driver shortage. As an industry, we have to focus on taking the talent that we have, getting the most productivity out of them, and thereby giving them the best quality of life. I think that's more the focus instead of screaming that we have a shortage.
So freight is finally rebounding after the longest down cycle that anyone can remember. So rates are up, capacity is tight. Does a hot freight market make your job easier or harder?
Little column A and a little column B.
Okay.
It makes it harder because it's definitely much more competitive out there. We've done recent competitive analysis in places like Dallas and El Paso. The driver wages are not up significantly, excluding a few exceptions. The amount of aggressive advertisers in a market is way up. So as an example, about 3 years ago, I would have done a competitive market analysis for Dallas. We would have looked at about 156 companies as our direct competitors. That number's closer to about 212 right now. So that's the big change in there. One of the things I would say, though, over the last 3 years that we've gotten much more business savvy about in recruiting is hiring that right person in the right location. I think we have the ability to offer very competitive jobs in the marketplace. Does it mean I have to kiss more frogs to find the prince? Absolutely. But I think we have something of value to offer a wide swath of the industry.
Mm-hmm. So that was our Fuel for Thought segment, and now we want to get into the interview. But I want to go back to something that we touched on in Fuel for Thought, which is about the driver shortage. So some people will say that it's really a pay and respect problem. So can you talk a little bit about that and what your take is?
Oh, I understand that completely. If you adjust for inflation, we got deregulated as an industry in 1980, 1981. The average driver at that time, adjusted for cost of living difference or inflation, would have been making the equivalent of $120,000 a year. The average driver today is making about $60,000 to $70,000 a year. So they've gone backward from a compensation standpoint. That is one of the things that we are concerned about. Now, that's between the carriers and the shippers, getting the driver in a position to be financially successful. Pay, respect, and honestly, quality of life. I think the third one's quality of life. We focus a lot on schedule and how often they're home and having a life outside the truck. I think it's very challenging for the carriers that have people out 3-4 weeks at a time. Is you're going to have to pay that person a premium to give up the life that they normally would have.
Yeah. So let's get straight up here. So what is costing us the most in terms of candidates? Is it pay? Is it home time? Or is it our own hiring speed?
I would say that it's home time. It's the quality of life. In the positions that we have available, where people are home every other day or on a very set schedule, those positions get filled very, very quickly. Um, Talking to my peers at companies where they don't have that home time proposition, where it's sheer money, they are in a dogfight at the moment.
Speaking of that, Texas and the Southwest are taking some of the tightest capacity hits in the country. Does that shrink our competition for drivers, or does that make it another fight?
It's another fight. It becomes a bit of an arms race. One of the things I've noticed is there's two ways you can approach this: a long-term battle versus a short-term battle. If you believe that the economy is going to be strong more than 12 months, you generally see an increase in driver wages. If you believe that this is a 3-month blip and you're not excited about 2027, you become a little more gimmicky. You spend more on recruitment advertising dollars. There are several carriers right now that are, as an example, offering pretty large sign-on bonuses. Now, those sign-on bonuses are loaded with caveats. I saw one that was for a team that was a $20,000 sign-on bonus, but it pays out over 2-3 years, which it's no longer a sign-on bonus when you're still 24 months into it waiting to get paid. So we see a lot of that right now, a lot more sign-on bonuses, a lot more rate per mile or cents per mile that you're like, wow, that's pretty impressive, until you read the fine print. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out over the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. So the average driver age is pushing 50, and only about 20% are under the age of 35. So what is being done to get younger people into the truck?
Well, that number's improving.
Okay.
The average age pre-COVID was 56. So getting it into the upper 40s is a bit of an accomplishment here. I think the younger demographic is attracted to the industry. I think our challenge is, in our industry, we require people to be 21 years of age. So we become a second career choice rather than a first career choice. That hurts us trying to get somebody as that first career choice. There's ways to go about challenging that, and I believe the ATA is pushing on that, as well as a couple organizations that are working alongside them. The big thing right now is we have to offer the lifestyle that people want. Most people in their 20s and 30s do not want to spend 3-4 weeks on the road or more. They want to have that life balance where they can go home, they can relax, have a wife or husband, kids, the white picket fence, the whole 9 yards. If we can offer the job that allows them to do that, there is definitely a percentage of the 20 and 30-year-olds that are highly attracted to that job.
hmm And women are still under 10% of the driver workforce. So is that a pipeline problem, a culture problem, or a marketing problem?
It's a couple of things here. Women can definitely do the job. If you look statistically, there's some of the safest drivers on the road. I don't share that information with my wife because we have that argument. But women definitely have a place in our industry. I think the perception that we deal with is, I don't know that a lot of women look at our industry as an option, which is, I think, part of the problem. I think women in trucking do a really good job with that as an organization. The more that we can do a better job, though, on a lifestyle standpoint, the more we'll have a higher percentage do that. One of the things that, when you look at a woman's career path in our industry, is women are most impacted by having kids, as an example. Well, is this a job that would allow you to take 2 years off, have kids, come back? I would say that it's not. But I think the more that we can focus on somebody's ability to get home daily, or at least multiple times during the week, then it becomes a realistic possibility that the husband, as an example, they can take care of the kids and the wife can go on the run. So I think we got to work around the lifestyle.
hmm And is that something that maybe, if you're targeting women who are a little older, who are beyond their childbearing or rearing stage, is that something that is considered?
We actually see that a lot. One of the most common things, we will have people as one-off trainers where their husband will train their wife in the truck. So it's one of the more common ways to do it. If we have a good partnership with Western Tech here in El Paso, as far as inexperienced drivers. But one of the common ways that we have one-off trainers is they are bringing their spouse into the truck with them.
So when you're talking about potential drivers, that pool seems to be shrinking. Are we still fishing in the same pond, or have we widened the profile?
Um, the folks that we recruit really do come from all walks of life. There is not a stereotypical truck driver, be it race, religion, political view. It's a pretty wide swath. I think the pool is expanding. It's not expanding quick enough. But I don't really think that it's, like I said, I don't believe that it's a shortage issue. I believe that what the driver expects from us is probably not what they expected 10 years ago.
hmm And you mentioned there is no stereotype, no profile, if you will, for truck drivers. But can we talk about what non-traditional talent pool has actually produced more drivers for MVT? Veterans, people who are changing career paths or second chance hires, anything like that?
Yeah, on average, we hire about 80 veterans a year. We work with a company called or an organization called Vet Ready, and Vet Ready's out of DC. And I think what it is we utilize their DD 214 experience as far as the MOS or the job would be what's called an 88 mic. So they're already driving in the military. That provides us with 80 quality drivers a year. We have people that come from overseas, as an example, through a company called Visa Solutions. These are folks that go through a 3 to 5 year process, so it is not like this is a quick process. They come here, they have training, English comprehension training, and a lot of other things. That's an interesting demographic that joins our company. But the most common one right now is just people that live in the markets that we operate. Our best advertising tends to be our drivers and our trucks. And so if you look in markets like Dallas, Houston, El Paso, where we get the most momentum in terms of hires, it's just they see us operating, and that naturally builds on kind of an organic growth.
So let's talk about what disqualifies a candidate at MVT that maybe some other carriers would let slide. And why do we hold that line?
Yeah. One of the things as we were doing the competitive analysis, I saw some companies advertising that they accept SAP drivers. Those would be people that had a drug issue in the past. We are very clear. If you're on the clearinghouse, there's a drug and alcohol clearinghouse. If you're on it, we're not moving forward with that. We also look at, can we make you happy? So as an example, if we have a driver that has 10 jobs in the last 3 years, which in most industries, I think people would be shocked by that, but that's not uncommon in trucking. We have to ask ourselves, would that person be successful here? Can we make them happy? And it is okay at times for the carrier to say, I can't make that person happy. We also look at somebody that, what are their expectations from the job? Can we meet those expectations? So it may be based off pay, home time. And then we just look for drivers that, quite frankly, are safety minded, really detail driven and methodical about what they do, professional, basically.
Mhm. So we're deep rooted in New Mexico and West Texas. How much of our hiring is local versus pulling drivers from out of the region?
Yeah. From the borderland area, Las Cruces, El Paso, that represents about 15% of our hiring. We have a large presence in DFW right now. We have approximately 150, 175 drivers. In Houston, we currently have about 80 drivers. We have a lot of dedicated opportunities out of Columbus, Ohio, as an example, where I think we're starting to approach 100 drivers out of Ohio at this point. So El Paso is definitely one of the central parts of our freight network. As I tell most drivers, 80% of our roads lead back to El Paso in one way or the other. But we have a lot of isolated situations where we find solutions for customers, where we have dedicated or some kind of engineered lane that we support people with, scattered throughout the country. We are unique from a carrier standpoint. We are very origin and destination specific. So where most carriers can hire somebody from all 48 states, we have very specific, about 18 markets that we focus on solely. Now, it leads the driver to get much better home time because chances are they live where we have freight. It limits my job as far as hiring, but it gives us a much higher success rate with drivers early in their first 90 to 120 days.
Would you say that those local drivers tend to stay on longer, or does that matter?
It depends on compensation and the lifestyle that they get. One of the things that we do is dedicated, where dedicated depending on it, tends to be something people look for. And it's not so much that it's one customer, it's the lifestyle that they get. So in Columbus, Ohio, we have people that are store delivery drivers for Lowe's, as an example. It's a Monday through Friday job. Their day generally ends about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's a demographic that loves having that job, and though they make good money on it, it's the lifestyle that they have and the time at home that they have that make that job worth it. We have other folks in other markets that have differences there, and so it's really case by case basis.
So everybody is usually chasing the application volume. Of course, a wider pool means maybe more hires, but volume doesn't actually equal hires. Which recruiting channel is actually converting leads into seated drivers right now?
Yeah. We generally talk to about 2,000 individuals a week. From a close rate percentage, our what gets us excited in recruiting is I love a driver referral. So if an employee or a current driver refers somebody, our success rate on closing that candidate is very good. We will never get enough referrals to fill all the trucks, but I will gladly, if someone comes to me and goes, "I have a referral," I get very excited. We do a lot of about 20 different sources where we find drivers from. Sometimes it evolves into other things. Social media is really good for us where we're able to have that longer dialogue with a candidate. Generally speaking, the places that are like multi-carrier job boards where most people go to find jobs are some of the ones that we're least active on.
Okay. So you mentioned referrals. So how much recruiting comes from our own drivers telling their story?
Yeah, it's where the social media part of our equation comes in, is we have a lot of, good material to share with candidates, but it's a soft sell. I can talk cents per mile real quick, I can talk miles real quick, but there's a whole lot of our 40-plus year history, like if I wanna tell the story of Royal Jones, or if I wanna talk about our equipment or our, coming up on 400 million milers. It's not something that fits into an ad very well, but people definitely wanna know about it, and so if they follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or other social media platforms, they get a very unique look at the company that tends to attract them. If they especially if they got 5 minutes, they're gonna learn a lot about us that separates us versus the other 75,000 carriers in the industry.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because that is something that people who are looking for a job are doing is they are researching MVT. They're reading reviews online. They're watching videos. They're checking social media, like you said, before they even apply.
Yeah.
So when a driver Googles MVT, what are they finding and does it match reality?
Yeah. They're finding that our online reviews have improved drastically over the last 5 to 10 years. The company has definitely evolved to what drivers were demanding or wanting to see from us. They will find that we have a lot of success stories. That's one of the fun things here. Like I said, there's not a lot of carriers that have so many successful million milers with safe driving miles. That gets people excited. They'll find out a lot of that we have very unique opportunities. So what we offer in one market may be dramatically different than another market. And so they end up wanting to inquire what the possibilities are. If you live in Dallas, technically I have 8 different options available that are all truck driver, but they're very different depending on what your priorities are. I think the variety at times can be somewhat confusing because drivers aren't used to that. And the challenge for a driver when they go into the job market is the average truck driver, according to 10 Street, which is an applicant tracking system, the average driver in the market has 8.3 recruiters that they're talking to. So it's very hard to stand out and be that one recruiter that doesn't sound like a schmuck. And so we have to work very hard of simplifying it and going, hey, let's take this off your plate and find the right home for you. And I think we do that well online. I think we can always get better at it. But our real job, I think, is to simplify the process for a driver. One of the things I did in the competitive analysis is I go to Walmart and I get a little burner phone and I act like a driver and I put my app on a job board. I got 23 phone calls in the first 24 hours from various trucking companies. So I know my candidate is being bombarded at this moment as soon as they put the bait of the resume out there. If we can simplify it and go, hey, what matters to you? Give me your top 3 things, and let's only talk about that for right now. We generally have a very good success rate.
So let's talk about sign on bonuses. Do you think that's a recruiting tool or a tax on carriers that have weak retention?
Oh, it's a gimmick. It's definitely a gimmick. I absolutely loathe them. Um, I will ask any driver if a company offers you a sign-on bonus. Let's say, Stephanie, you were coming to drive for us, and I said, I'm going to pay you $5,000 and I'm going to pay it to you over 12 months. When you go into year 2, do you think as a second year driver with me, are you more valuable or less valuable?
I think I'm more valuable.
Absolutely. Why don't I pay you $5,000 then for that year or the next year or the next year? I ask every driver, why would you be okay supplementing the next guy that comes in with $5,000 when you're in year 2? You're paying for that sign-on bonus for the next person. It becomes almost like sticking a carrot out there. There's not really functionality to it. If you have the money and the profit margin to pay it, put it in the cent per mile or put it in a weekly pay. But when you take somebody's compensation and you, for lack of a better term, make it like the Price is Right or a game show, I find it insulting.
Hmm. So, what is the biggest lie in driver recruiting advertising industry wide, and how do we avoid telling it?
The cent per mile game. I'll give you an example. Back uh, 15, 20 years ago when I worked with a partner and started CDL Life, I had two trucks and I paid 80 cents a mile on those two trucks. Now, it was flatbed. I paid 80 cents a mile because really we made our money. It was more project work. So you could go to the truck stop and brag to everybody, I make 80 cents a mile. That's not really the number that matters. The number that matters is what do you make on a given week? Because you don't pay your mortgage on cents per mile. You don't get to pay your electric bill with mileage ran. So yeah, I did pay that, but the thing was I needed to get that person to about $1,600 a week. And when you add tarping and strapping and everything else in the two trucks I owned, they got to that $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 range. So what you will see a lot of times in most of the ads is you will see a lot of stuff out there. We pay 70 cents a mile, 85, 90 cents a mile. And I tell every driver, that is not the whole story. You need to ask, what is it that you're making? What do you get per week? If that recruiter cannot confidently tell you that you're going to be in this band pay-wise, that mileage becomes basically truck stop bragging rights is all it is at that point. So the cents per mile definitely matters. It's one of the questions you're going to ask and you're going to want to know because you want to figure out how that check happens. But having a very honest conversation about, hey, this is what the average driver makes. This is the top 10%. This is the bottom 10%. On the top 10%, they make this by doing these things. And the bottom 10%, they make this because they don't do these things. That conversation becomes really important instead of trying to win on cents per mile.
Mm-hmm. So I want to get back to referrals and referral programs are some of the cheapest hires in the industry when they work. So do ours work? And what makes a driver actually refer one of their friends?
Yeah. They do work. They tend to have the lowest turnover rate in the first 90 days. It helps when you come into a company and you already have a friend that invited you over. That mentorship definitely helps with that. They tend to be more productive. They tend to have a higher success rate in that first 90 days. The big thing there is they have somebody to lean on, and we definitely believe not just with our mentors, but mentorship with your other drivers is something that you can rely heavily on. They're definitely attractive. They're definitely cost effective. I think the big thing drivers need to remember is you're not recruiting your competition because a lot of drivers are afraid of referrals because they view freight is a finite number. And if I recruit somebody and refer them over, am I bringing the person that's taking too much freight? That is definitely not the case. And normally, if we can overcome that aspect of it, people love bringing their friends over.
Yeah. So driver pay, you mentioned it earlier. It's been basically flat for a decade when you adjust for inflation. And you mentioned that too. You said it's actually going backwards. So where does MVT's package actually win? And where are we honest about not winning?
Yeah, we win in the form of consistency. I don't tell any driver that we are the highest paying job out there. I've never made that claim. We are one of the most consistent, and that's the advantage of us having engineered lanes. So as an example, we have a division that internally we call Division 300, where you go El Paso, Dallas, Denver, back to El Paso, and it takes you about 4 days to do that triangle, 3.5, 4 days. You get home for 34 hours, and you do that triangle over and over again. You're going to average about $1,600 to $1,700 a week. The nice thing is your week's not going to vary substantially. Your week is going to be about $75 difference from one week to the next, depending on mileage. That consistency in pay is a very valuable thing because you can budget your life off of it. If you go to carrier XYZ and one week you're at 1,800 and then 900 and 1,500 and 500, boy, it's hard to set a budget around that. It's unbelievably inconsistent. It's like being a commissioned salesperson at that person, just hoping things work out. So our value proposition normally comes down to consistency in pay. And if you are big about getting out of the house when it's time to get out of the house, being on time, being safe, being courteous to other not pedestrians, other people on the road. Hopefully you're not engaging with pedestrians. That ain't good. You will be very successful.
Yeah. So, what closes the deal? We've been talking about all of these different methods of recruiting. So, when a driver is choosing between us and other offers, what is it that makes them choose us? Is it money? Is it something else?
It's being in agreement on at least 3 different things. It's never one thing. When we successfully recruit somebody that comes here and has success, there may be one topic that led to the phone call to take place, but it's normally being in agreement with at least 3 things. It could be pay, it could be equipment, it could be a relationship with a dispatcher. One of the things that you'll find is figuring out who the decision maker is in the process. We have what's called cows, which is cannot operate without spouse. And where that is a lot of times it's not the driver making that decision. It's really a family unit that's making the decision. If you can get into that space where that family is able to make the decision together and you can answer three of their problem issues, you're going to have somebody that not just comes, but has success in the early stages of their employment with us.
Okay. And how much does equipment matter when it comes to recruiting? Does the driver actually pick a carrier over the truck age and the specs, or is that a myth?
Not all, but it's definitely important. It'd be like if I'll word it this way: if you have an office job and your employer never allows you to have pens, it may be difficult to do your job. If you're a fast food worker and you're never allowed to have non-slip shoes, you're gonna have an issue. If you're a driver, you definitely want to be comfortable in the truck. You want to have the truck that's going to get the job done. And because you spend so much time in the truck, you want to be comfortable. So yeah, the blue beasts, as we call them on the road, they're very popular. They do well for us. We've converted people that go, I'll never drive an international. And they get in there and they enjoy it. They have fun with it, and feel safe in it. And they end up a year later going, pretty good truck. Pretty good truck. I like it. So you definitely have to overcome that. And nothing, if you recruit a driver that comes from a carrier that doesn't take care of the equipment, they won't forget that experience because it will stick with them the rest of their career because they struggle to do the job.
Hmm. So qualified drivers are off the market in days. From application to seated in a truck, how fast is MVT and where does the process get bogged down?
Yeah. In theory, I can talk to somebody at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and have them in orientation on Monday.
Wow.
It normally doesn't work that way, but we do get people that will be a last minute addition to orientation. Generally speaking, I will tell every driver, be open and transparent. Expect it from us. Expect us to go over the details with you. I don't mind what could be a 3-minute call turning into a 20-minute phone call. I don't mind that. The big thing on the driver's end is be transparent with us too. And I don't mean just from a qualification standpoint. What matters to you? What are you trying to avoid? Don't hold back. If I give you the wrong answer and you don't like what I have to say, I'm glad that you found that out. I don't want you to come to orientation and go, boy, I wish I would have known that, because it's a failure on my end and a failure on your end at that point, and we both leave unhappy. So I think the biggest thing is being transparent and do not be afraid to annoy somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
I will tell anybody, and I've heard dispatchers tell a couple drivers, don't be afraid to be an annoyance. That is okay. We do not mind because that communication, that open dialogue makes a huge difference.
Yeah, you have to hear from people what they want so you know if you have it to offer or not.
Yep.
Wow.
And that really goes through the whole process. I think we talked about it in episode 2 when I talked to you is I was in Georgia and I bought a house. And over the course of the 2 weeks of buying a house, what I wanted changed. That's okay. So, I wanted a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, and a half an acre. 2 weeks later, now I want an outdoor fireplace because I saw it. Now I want something else. So as a driver too, if your expectations or your desire changes because you've talked to other companies, it's okay to start all over again. The big thing is over communicate.
Hmm. Retention starts at recruiting. And what are new drivers telling us about onboarding and where are we losing people before they even turn a wheel?
Yeah, our big thing right now is a couple fold here. One of the challenges in our world of recruiting is a lot of areas are ban the box now, so if you have a criminal history as an example, we don't get that visibility in the beginning. The intention of that ban the box makes all the sense in the world. You don't want people that have any disadvantages to not have the ability to get the job. The challenge with that is there's nothing worse than sending somebody home when they get to orientation, you run their background, go, we can't move forward, but we couldn't have that dialogue either legally. That's a challenge for us that I hope that legally that gets worked through in the coming years. It's expanding more than contracting. I think it's a horrible experience for a driver to have that happen when they show up to orientation and go, sorry, we got new information, you got to go home. Nobody enjoys that.
Hmm. And big truckload carriers still run near 90% annual turnover. So can you talk about our number and what is one thing that moved it the most?
Yeah. We generally are at about 70%, and that number continues to tread down. If you look about 5 years ago, we were at, I think in 2021, we would have been 123%. there's a few things that moved the needle on that. Like I said, we hire the right drivers from the right locations for the right jobs. That does make a difference. That's where recruiting has the biggest impact. We looked at divisions that were prone to having high turnover, and a couple of those divisions don't exist anymore. Our sales team works diligently to find what we define as driver-friendly freight. All customers and all freight are not created equal. If you have freight that essentially wastes the driver's time because they only have limited time available to them to work, that freight becomes very unattractive very quickly. We have shippers or direct customers that understand the value proposition that they need to have in that relationship. We've been very fortunate that we have numerous customers that specifically, what can we do to lower your turnover? That's unique. And when you combine that with probably about 20 other things, that's why that number continues to go down.
Hmm. Everybody says the dispatcher relationship can make or break a driver's first 90 days. So, what is MVT doing to make sure that that relationship is good from day one?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that we do is when that driver and that dispatcher meet for the first time, we've left notes for the dispatcher. So the dispatcher knows, as an example, if you're a Cowboys fan, or knows, hey, why is trucking important to you? What do you want out of your job? So they're not going into that cold conversation. And that sounds really trivial and really meaningless, but it's not. You're building a relationship. That is the person you'll work with on a daily basis more than any other person in the company. Your ability to find commonality and a bond with somebody, especially that you work with on a daily basis, becomes really pivotal. The other part of the equation is we have a lot of dispatchers that either were previous drivers or they have an extensive network of experience. That rich collaborative environment that we have in our dispatch team leads to success. It also, when we hire a new fleet manager, as an example, it gives them a good blueprint on what works and what doesn't.
Hmm. Cost per hire is a rear view metric. What are we watching that tells us that a driver is going to leave before they actually do?
There's a couple things here. We work with a company called Hello Retention. They don't dispatch any drivers. The day they're in our system doing anything's a concern. Their one thing is they call once a week and they just want to, how you doing? Is things going well for you? What do you like? What do you not like? And one of the things there is when a driver actually leaves, the straw that broke the camel's back may be what made them leave, but there was most likely 5 or 6 other things that happened along the way to get them to that point. One of the feedback that we get is, hey, I don't like this or I don't like that. And if we take that opportunity to not look at that as a complaint, but as an opportunity, things will work out well and it creates ownership of it. So let's say a driver goes, I don't like my truck. It's got this issue with it. That's not a complaint. That is an opportunity. If you can fix that and come up with a solution within 24 hours, that driver will remember that. I always point out relationships are built through the bad times, not the good times. It's great. Everybody, when things are going well, if you and I right now bought a lotto ticket and we won, I don't know, $3 million, I bet your positive view on me would be really high because 1.5 million helps in that. On the flip side, if you're on the side of the road because you ran out of gas or got a flat tire, that's where a relationship's built. It's all of a sudden someone's on the side of the road changing out your tire matters a whole lot more. So with drivers in the bad situation, and it's trucking, something's going to go unplanned. If we can succeed in making it better, we're going to have a much more positive result. Where that driver complains and ultimately leaves is when we didn't create that solution. They're going to leave because they are hurt. They most likely feel it financially. And by the time we know about it, it's too late.
Mm. So let's talk about the future. A year from now, what does winning look like for driver recruiting at MVT?
Yeah. A year from now, I want to say that we have much fewer of the bottom 10%. I kind of look at our fleet in a couple ways. We have our 80%. Nothing wrong with those folks. I appreciate them. They're average. That's not a bad thing. An average at MVT is pretty good. We get pretty good MPGs and some other metrics. You got your top 10% and your bottom 10%. I want to see that bottom 10%. I know where they are on a weekly pay standpoint. I want to see that number to where the 80% expands and that bottom 10% number becomes that 5% number, which is hard to explain without a drawing, a dry erase board behind me. But it's making sure that we have less failures on our end, because when a driver leaves here and doesn't have success, they're not quitting MVT, they're quitting me. They're quitting Royal. They are quitting us as individuals, not necessarily the company.
Okay. Well, always a great conversation, Robert. Thank you for giving us a behind the scenes look at what recruiting really looks like today and for sharing the strategies that go into building a strong driver team. It's clear that recruiting is about much more than filling trucks. It's about finding the right people, building lasting relationships, and creating an experience that keeps drivers successful long after they're hired. If you're interested in becoming part of the MVT family, visit drive4mvt.com to learn more about our driving opportunities. I'm Stephanie Valle, and until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and keep on trucking.